All right, hello everyone. This is Josh Grelick here from Arctic Leaf. We'll be getting started just in a few minutes to talk about Google Analytics 4, or acronym GA4. I'm pretty stoked about this one because I get to learn a lot, and a lot of times I end up doing a lot of the talking. I'm going to try not to do so much of the talking and leave the experts to do most of the work here. But we'll get things started pretty quickly here. We're just going to wait for a few more people to get online. And but if you guys do have questions, please feel free to use that Q&A button down there. We definitely want to hear a little bit more of the questions that you may have, other people may have. And then what's great about that is we're going to curate all this great information and put that up on our blog, on our arcticleaf.io website as well. So if you have friends or colleagues or anyone that may not have been able to get on for today's call, don't worry. We will be recording it. We are recording it, and we're going to have a nice recap put up online shortly thereafterwards. Definitely stick around to the end if you can, because we do, as far as OnTap, we always have some kind of a little giveaway or something like that we like to share with the community. And make sure you obviously have a beverage. I'm a coffee guy and water. Alcoholic beverages at 2 in the afternoon, that's your own choice. It's 5 o'clock somewhere, but that's just letting you know that. So we'll give it a go here in a second. Jason or Glenn, do you have anything you want to share right before? I'll give you a quick introduction who these gentlemen are, but if you have anything you want to share quickly before we get started, please feel free to say so.
I'm just excited to be here. This is my first OnTap, and I should be wearing my Arctic Leaf shirt, but I'm not.
Listen, you can't all look as good as me, right? So that's it.
That's
Glenn,
it. I can't show up, Josh. I'm also pleased for this, and the timing couldn't be better. Like, this is far enough away from the deadline that people can still do some things that will matter in their company, but we don't have a lot of time. So I'm very happy for how we've been able to get a jump on this initiative, which is going to be a big part of 2023 for marketers.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Glad couldn't have said it better. So let's get things started here. We're 3 minutes after. We try to keep this pretty on schedule. So, usually about 30 to 35 minutes of conversation, and then 10 to 15 minutes, depending on how much time, for Q&A afterwards. But we really try to get things done in 45 minutes or less. And we just kind of joked, it's like, great, you put a bunch of 3 marketers on a call and you're going to get it all done in 30 to 45 minutes. It's pretty ridiculous. But for those of you who don't know me, my name is Josh Grelick. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Arctic Leaf. We are a digital agency. We've been around for just under 13 years, specializing in e-commerce software development. So we build stores for mid-market and enterprise brands, and we also work with those merchants and brands on retention strategies and below the funnel marketing. I'd also like to introduce you to one of my counterparts who works here at the agency with me, Jason Hackenberry. Do you want to introduce yourself really quickly?
Sure. Yeah, I head up client success here. I've been in the e-commerce space for roughly 10 years. 6 of those years, I did visual merchandising for the luxury brand Versace. That kind of gave me a lot of foundation that led me into e-commerce. I was a director of e-commerce and ops for a menswear apparel brand that had a B2B presence, wholesaling manufactured our own goods. And I also did digital marketing and D2C for a manufacturer in the outdoor space. And that was primarily vendor and wholesale relationship based as well. So yeah, that's
awesome. Great. I love when you share your story and your background, because I always find it super fascinating. So thank you for that. And then I'm super excited to introduce Glenn, because Glenn is actually someone that I really look up to as a mentor. And when I moved to Ottawa, what was it? I think 10, 11 years ago, I think I met Glenn at a bunch of networking events. I was some young startup punk guy that was trying to figure out what I was doing. And Glenn was just really someone that I looked up to. So Glenn, do you want to just quickly introduce yourself?
Thank you. Wow, I don't know how to follow that, Josh, except, no, I'm grateful. And yeah, Josh and I geeked out on marketing and this sort of thing way before it was cool. But as he said, for about 10 years, I've been working within the firm Marketing What's New, which I founded, and we provide training as well as technology implementation for largely B2B companies to help them make sure that their funnels are proving that they are providing a net positive benefit to the company's profit.
Awesome. Well, awesome. Super excited to have you here, Glenn. And just been great to be able to kind of reconnect and get to work on a couple of cool things together. It's been some time. So we'll kick things off. So what we're going to kind of cover today, we'll go to the next slide, is obviously Google Analytics 4 or GA4. So how's it going to work? What are the big differences between GA4, Universal, 360? This one's more exciting for me, like the B2B and e-commerce, right? How does this all play into our world and our landscape and our space? Obviously, are there going to be benefits from GA4? Google says they are. Let's find out, right? And I think it's yet to be seen or determined. But obviously there's reasons for what's happening in the landscape and the ecosystem. And that obviously leads to frustrations with GA4, right? Anything new and innovative is going to be frustrating at times because there's an adoption period. And then last but not least is how do we capitalize on the information provided by GA4? So you're going to get all this new data, all this information. What do you do with it, right? And so there's been a lot of skepticism, a lot of curiosity, a lot of unknowns around this whole update to how analytics have been done. And if you've been in the space as long as myself and Jason and Glenn have, we're pretty used to Google Analytics, right? We've invested in it, we understand it, we've been following it over the course of the last umpteen years. So this is obviously a pretty massive change for everyone. So let's kind of dive into it. The first thing we're going to kind of get into is the timeline, and I'm going to ask Glenn to talk about the timeline that's coming up on what are the key dates that are really important that we need to know about. So Glenn, take it away.
Thanks, Josh. So coming back to what we had before, I want to make sure that we understand that Google is trying to make a long-term roadmap, and they want us to associate Google Analytics with one product. But the product that you know as Google Analytics is actually completely different from GA4. What they're calling that, and what that has been called, is Universal Analytics. So Universal Analytics is the one that we know and love, that we've had since the mid-2000s. In the late 20-teens, they came out with this different product, which at the time they called App Plus Web. Now, Google isn't great at coming up with names, and that's a doozy of a name. They wisely, in late 2020, announced and made it clear to us that this App Plus Web tool is the new Google Analytics. So they christened it with version number 4, and they went to some lengths trying to explain that we had been using version 3 and that there were, all preceding versions. That doesn't really matter. All we need to know is that Google Analytics 4 is this brand new product that they basically slipped into. It merged into the traffic lane that our Universal Analytics had been driving in. And when they announced in late 2020 that it would be replacing, they said that on July 1st of 2023, the Universal Analytics would stop collecting new data. So we've got 5 months just about until that happens. That doesn't mean that you won't be able to get into it. Universal Analytics will continue to keep data for another 6 months after that, until January 1st of 2024. You have the option at any time to install Google Analytics 4 and have it continue collecting data at the same time in parallel with Universal Analytics. So they can both be driving along that road. However, after January 1st of 2024, you won't even be able to get into Universal Analytics. So to make your reporting work, you're going to have to sort out what you're doing in GA4 before that date, because you won't even be able to see GA3 or Universal data after that date. The last 2 spots are for those folks who are on a paid version called GA360. And this comment only addresses those people, because if you haven't forked out the money, the considerable amount of money that it costs to be on the GA360, it's unlikely that you're going to go there now. But for those folks, Google is making special one-time extensions where they will have until July 1st of 2024 to keep collecting data. And then finally, they will also lose access to the data at the beginning of 2025.
Yeah. So awesome, Glenn. Thank you for that key dates that you guys should be aware of. Don't be surprised if things change a little bit. We were actually kind of discussing this right before that we may even see some things move up ahead a little bit because it does seem like Google's trying to double down and kind of get going here. So now that we know some timelines, how does Google Analytics work? So obviously there's a lot of unknowns, a lot of differences. If you've kind of even just install Google Analytics and see what's going on in there, it looks completely different. So Jason, let's kind of unpack that a little bit. How does wow, those aren't words. How does GA4 work?
I'll just kind of go through these bullet points and we can kind of drill down it further once we get further down the slide. But so OGs, and I say that because GA4 is completely different. And the biggest message, and Glenn already kind of touched upon this, I try to convey with our clients, is that GA4 is not an upgrade. It's a completely new platform, right? So where Universal Analytics, that's the one most of us know of. Some might know Classic Analytics. Hell, some people might even know about Urchin back in the older days. But it's completely new. So it works based off the data modeling of events. And the best way to think of that is think of events as behaviors. Where Universal Analytics was page views and sessions, GA4 is based off events. There's a few reasons why Google did this, and from my perspective, and I think they looked at the changing landscape of technology and privacy issues, right? They looked at it like we kind of have to start from scratch now. We can no longer plug pieces the way we did with Universal Analytics to try to make it better. So they had to create something new. So GA4 is also meant to be future-proof, is what they're calling it, when it comes into the term we've heard so many times, a cookieless future, right? We keep hearing that and it slightly irritates me, but it is a real thing. If you look at the GDPR that's happening in Europe and here in the lower 48, there's a lot of states that are adopting more policies. So that's occurring. Additionally, there's some AI and some machine learning that they've adopted. So that's going to lend itself for us to have more predictive capabilities, which is a new feature. And then some direct integrations that we have with the free version that primarily was with the paid version, which Glenn kind of already talked about. So we'll kind of get into the weeds of it, but that's like the overarching view of what kind of how GA4 works. Think of it as event-based modeling as opposed to page views and sessions, the way UA was. Glenn, you have anything to add to that?
I think that covers it really nicely.
I was going to throw in there, like, as you're talking about how more predictive, I was going to kind of, muddy the waters and bring up chat GPT, but we'll save that for another one. So
I was actually going to say we are not allowed to bring up chat GPT.
Oh gosh. Well, I think Microsoft just announced it yesterday or today even that they're building a new search engine that's going to be powered by chat GPT, and it's going to be for like $8 a month or something like that. Again, I don't know. I just saw that headline earlier. So let's kind of unpack kind of what's changing between Universal Analytics and GA4. So let's just get kind of right into that, right? They're obviously like Jason said, and Glenn said, they're totally different platforms. So what is the difference?
Sure. So when we're looking at it again, GA4 is a brand new platform, and I can't say that enough. UA, you don't even think about UA anymore. There's a lot of things are changing. When you go on the dashboard right now, it will look completely different. And I've heard some clients say it looks like there's missing gaps. And in some, there's an argument to say there are, because this is an ongoing project with Google. GA4 is constantly rolling out new features and they're kind of moving things around as well. So the dashboard's completely different. And anyone can see that. The verbiage is even changing, right? Bounce rate is no longer there. That's now engagement. Now, I'm sure Glenn can attest to it from his marketing background. That's a much better way to measure that engagement sessions, engagement per user, and what have you. So that's a new adoption that we all have to combat. It's new verbiage. We're so used to talking about bounce rate and page views and whatnot, but that's a new thing. And again, the privacy thing I think is a bigger one too, because we've seen more user demanding, transparency and control of their own data. Google looked at that and saw, okay, well, the technology is changing, and with people now adopting applications, which was never a thing in the past, you're seeing a lot more brands and merchants adopting apps. So now you can holistically view that data at the same time, which is great. You could cross-reference that. They're also looking at privacy as well. as we enter this, we're going to, Google's looking at it like we need to implement this event-based modeling so people can still have this data, but actually make actionable insights from this data. So that's roughly what's changing with universal analytics. Glenn, you might have something more to add there on your end of it.
Yeah, happy to. And we'll kind of sidestep the UI for a second and just talk about the overall platform. They have taken things that we used to think of as being universal analytics. Things like if you went into the admin area, you could set up goals, you could make some different configurations. They have now made it clear that they think different products, completely different products, will be taking on some of those jobs. So for people who are used to setting up certain goals and setting categories and actions and labels, you're actually supposed to now be using a tag, like a tag management solution, such as Google Tag Manager, to do that. And then moving ourselves back into what you're used to seeing on the reports, I just add to what Jason said. Yes, the way that you see reports is completely different. You're not going down like a tree of menus to the report that you know and love in Universal. Instead, you have a sparse number of starter reports, and you're going to have to configure.
It's a great way to describe it. It's pretty bare bones when you get in there.
Yeah, and that's going to get you so far. There's this new thing called the Explore tab, which basically lets you create your own reports. But even that is like the Tonka toy version of where Google really wants people to go, because they have this other product. People used to know it as Google Data Studio. It's now called Looker Studio, but it's like that Explore tab that is inside of inside of Google Analytics 4, but it's really what they mean as their full-fledged reporting solution. So we're looking and touching and changing data on our websites, but we have to start thinking across several products and going into the right product for the particular task that we have to do. It is the way that Google does things, and they're not really giving us a choice.
This is so heavy, so meaty. I love it because sorry,
real quick, Glenn. So to help maybe some merchants or clients that are watching this, when someone's in Universal Analytics and they are on that side menu and they're seeing all those different options on that side menu, I believe there's 30 default reports in UA. That's kind of all those things you see. The gap that we're seeing is because you can create those reports yourself. That's kind of based on that event modeling, right? So you can kind of you can customize those reports, and you're seeing that like, oh, you're not seeing that on the side menu anymore, but that's because you have more control of it now.
Has Google forgotten their business model, that people are lazy? And I mean, literally, you go to Google, it's like, I mean, you ask questions all day long. I mean, I know just sitting in the office and I want to figure something out, or I have a question on something, I go to Google, right? It's Google. It's kind of helped make society lazy. So it's kind of almost like a oxymoron in a sense, where it's like, oh, wait a second, actually now you got to start thinking for yourself. It's interesting, right?
Well, sorry, yeah.
So now that we've kind of identified what's changing, and I know we can literally spend hours on this one slide alone, but we do have to try to keep things moving here. So now that we've identified some of the differences and what's changing between Universal Analytics and GA4, now I want to pose Glenn the question of, well, he alluded to the GA360 suite. So what is the difference between the free version of GA4 and then Google Analytics 360, and hopefully you can touch on that quickly and tell us the difference.
Yeah, I'll keep it quick. We again, my comments are probably for those who may already be on the 360 suite, and they get some things that the rest of us may not even miss. I liken it to maybe heading to a flight at an airport, and if you're used to just going to the gate, that's great. That's what you know. There are other people who are frequent flyers who get to go into the lounge, and they know what the lounge is like, and you don't. So what's in the lounge? I
love the lounge, by the way.
It's amazing. What's in the lounge for the GA360 folks is they don't have sampled data. So for most of us, and if your site is a decent size, you may the odd time notice when you're trying to do a report in GA4 that it marks this is sample data. Now, some of this is because Google wants to quickly process and give you an answer. But another part of it, and I think part of it that we're going to all have to get used to, is because of privacy. There is going to be, especially if you get into a very narrow query on Google Analytics, we're just in a new reality where Google is not going to show you down to the identity level. So for people who, though, are hitting that regularly in GA360, Google does let you have the entire sum of your data. And then if you've heard about it, you may be aware that some people are frustrated because they're hitting what's called an API quota. This is if they're using another tool to get at Google Analytics data, not through the interface. Well, if you're on GA360, they don't have those ceilings nearly as low as for the commoners like us. They have a much higher level at which they can hit their data without incurring a quota limit.
That's I love that you referred to us as common folk there, Glenn. That was fantastic. So yeah, I mean, obviously, like, I think most companies and merchants are using the free version. Obviously, they're the exception to the rule, and obviously you get more data and more advanced services, like anything else. So now that we've kind of unpacked a little bit of differences, free versus paid. So, obviously, as Arctic Leaf is a digital agency that focuses on e-commerce, and Glenn does a lot more work with B2B. What are the differences, right? How is GA4 going to support e-commerce, both from a direct-to-consumer model and also wholesale and B2B? So I think that's a great thing that we want to unpack next.
I'll be glad to take that on. I'll start up and then I'll pass it to Jason. So for B2B, most companies are going to be in a sales cycle which takes several months from the time that someone is first kicking the tires on a website until they become a lead, then become qualified, then become an opportunity, and finally a sale. The out-of-the-box configuration for GA4 is that it's holding on to all the data that you might ever need for reports for only 2 months. So some good news here. Everybody has the ability to go in right now into your admin, if you've installed GA4, and switch that to 14 months. And I'd encourage you to do that. But for some companies, even 14 months is on the short side of when they're going to see something that began as a visit end in a sale. So we want to look at other means of handling that. And although it's rather technical, I just want to give everybody some good news here, and that it is possible to tie in information from your marketing automation, from your CRM, from the systems that are deep in the funnel, and to give that information back to Google Analytics and to Google and any advertising platforms you use, so that they can use their algorithms to go find more people like the ones that are resulting in successful sales. So, I guess Google takes a bit and they also give a bit. Jason?
Sure. No, those are all really fantastic points. With the D2C model, I think it goes without saying that GA4 is going to be a fantastic tool for anyone in e-commerce. With the event-based modeling, it's no brainer, but some features I think they're really great. As an example, so one of the companies I was working for, like I said earlier, was a legacy company, 75+ year legacy company. And I was brought on to kind of hone in on the D2C experience. The D2C was maybe a few years old, right? So they had 70+ years to hone in on their customer and vendor relationships. And this was all done through, person to person on sales calls, like through the phone. So that was a big part of their business that you couldn't track that, right? You could not see that data. With GA4, for a lot of these merchants that come from that, obviously we've seen a lot of merchants adopt a more aggressive policy with post-COVID. And a lot of them come from this background, like we did do a lot of sales offline. Well, now GA4 can track a lot of those sales offline. Like as an example, you can, if someone's searching on their mobile phone, they click the link to contact customer service, that's now trackable. You can now see that and see that journey of that user, which I think is a fantastic, it seems small, but it's a fantastic tool that is going to be important for D2C, B2B, and everyone across the board. So yeah.
And listen, we can unpack, like I said, hours and hours of examples and abilities of what this can do, right? Now, obviously with change, right, there comes sometimes frustration, right? It's just part of life, evolution, business. You grow up, get older, you hit puberty, right? Sorry, right? There's all those types of things that happen. So let's talk about a little bit of the frustrations that's something that you're going to kind of experience as you start adopting GA4, especially on the onset. I think one of the first ones I'll really kind of point out, something I talked to in our solutioning phase, is that if you run GA4 and GA at the same time, there's going to be site speed potential issues because now you have double the tracking, right? So that's actually not on the report here. But I'll ask Jason to kind of unpack. And I have lots of conversations with Jason every week, and he just sometimes has to vent around GA4 and the frustrations that are coming. So Jason, please, share some of that frustration with us,
Sure. Well,
in a nice professional manner, of course.
Yeah, of course. Well, look, I'll try my hardest not to harp on Google here. The only thing I will say is that the rollout has been cumbersome at best. And I know we've all talked about this. It's one of those things where a lot of us are learning at the same time, right? Us being on our side of it, and our clients and merchants. So we're all figuring out things at the same time, but Google kind of said, hey, you need to get on this. But by the way, you need to learn a new everything, but also you have a time frame to do that. So that's the biggest frustration. Like I've already touched upon, additionally, if you go in it now, you're going to see everything looks different, right? So you're going to have to acclimate to new verbiage, like I've already said, and the new dashboard, the new menu items. It's not difficult, but because we all use universal analytics for so long now, it is learning a little bit new, like it's learning some new tools and features. So that is a big frustration. The data dumping, I think Glenn already talked about it, the 2 to 14 month. And the reason why I think that's a frustration is because a lot of us are now going to have to figure out a way, like, how do we comp our numbers? A lot of clients that I've spoken to, and even myself in different roles, we didn't really leverage data warehouses, right? But that might come in the conversation now when you're looking at having your data and being able to comp down the line. So the data dumping aspect, I think, is a new way of thinking about how do you want to measure past 14 months, right? And the learning curve. So the way I perceive this is this: if you look at July 1st of this year is when UA will stop propagating data, and then you have a handful of months until you can no longer access it. That's me thinking Google's like, that's how long you have to learn the learning curve, right? This is the last moment and you have a few months to figure it out. So,
and how long is that again, Jason? To remind everyone just what's that window from? I think it's July to October, right?
So yeah, for the free version, it's October 2023. For 360, it's January 2024.
Yeah. So not a lot of time to learn. So
it might change, but I don't know. We've seen Google push things out, but it feels different this time. So I don't know. I'm curious to see, Glenn, your take. Do you think this might change, or do you think they're kind of digging their heels in the mud here?
I'm never going to try and crystal ball what Google's going to do. Just a quick note on what you said. The free guys are always getting, pushed off the truck early. We are getting kicked off as of end of this year, 2023. The paid guys get until July of next year. But whether we're getting kicked off the turnip truck or not, we do have that short window of time to get on this. All I would say is that Google is currently being investigated, as well as formally being sued in some jurisdictions for Universal's data model. And because of the privacy that it's getting completely trashed over, they are in a hurry to get off of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, so lots of frustrations, like anything else, right? Evolution of business, evolution of technology. there's going to be frustrations that come with it, and there's going to be learning curves. But the nice thing about change sometimes and evolution is that it brings positivity, right? It brings benefits. So let's now unpack some of the benefits that GA4 is going to bring after we get through all the frustration period and everyone goes on Twitter and starts yelling and screaming about all the things that they don't like. And then 6 months later, they'll be like, what? GA4 is amazing. Where's this thing been my entire life? So let's start. Jason, I'll kick it off to you, and then Glenn, you can finish it off and tell us a little bit more about the benefits of GA4.
We can have so many more calls on the benefits of GA4, in my opinion, and then we'll go down the technical rabbit hole. So I'll try not to do that. But I do think GA4, once you acclimate to it, it is a fantastic tool. So the fact that you can now holistically see the data between your website and an app, I think is a huge deal. I think that's a big deal when you're seeing the landscape change where more merchants are adopting that technology, as well as it being incredibly customizable. Now, there might be an argument there that says that because it's really customizable, it could be overwhelming because you go in there and you see all these missing parts. But once you kind of get in the weeds of it and you start finding a foundation, you realize actually how much you can do and how much you can do that you could not do in universal analytics without a lot of advanced knowledge and complicated work within GTM. So there's that aspect of it. And one quick thing I want to note, because I've talked to a few of our clients about this, and I think it's a fantastic example, is that GA4 can measure time. And what I mean by that is that when you look at elapsed time, GA4 can now see when a user is on a page and sees how long they take to read your blog or watch a video, only YouTube right now. But still, prior to that, it was a little bit more difficult to get that information. But now there's that function, which is going to fill that hole in data that existed for so long. And I'm sure Glenn can speak to that more on the marketing side of it.
100%. So just on that, if we think about how people are experiencing our brands, they're on a mobile device. They're, even if it's just the mobile version of our website. So they could be scrolling through, and we all needed to get a newer, more accurate model for how we are engaged with. Google Analytics 4 does that. So despite the growing pains, we need to shift over to the event-based model. Remember, even if they're using an app of yours, they're always logged in. So the idea of a 30-minute session like Universal had is really antiquated for what we need in today's world. So it fits that. Just on Jason's point about customizing, yeah, that's going to require marketers to learn some new things related to databases, related to APIs. But the benefit is they'll be able to put in information related to their audiences, related to individual things that maybe only their website has, but that matters to their management for reporting. You can mark these in a way that was very hard to do in the old system and tune Google Analytics 4 so that it's going to remember those algorithmically, train other Google products on when those happen, as well as serve you by putting it in, let's say, a visual so that you can see when it happens.
Very cool.
Awesome.
So I like to talk about irony for a second here, because I literally just got an email from Google saying Universal Analytics standard properties will stop processing data on July 1. It's like they're listening or something. So that's too much. I'm freaked out right now. And this is why I have a love-hate relationship with technology. It's just creepy sometimes. So I know we have a really cool, good question. Hi, Danielle. Hopefully everything's good, and wishing you all the best. We'll hopefully get to that. That does look like a little bit more of a technical question, which we may or may not be able to answer on today's call, but we will definitely look into adding that answer on the recap on our blog post. So we're kind of coming up just on our last slide here, and then we'll get into some more Q&A. So the question really is okay, now that we know the differences, we know the frustrations we're going to deal with, we know some of the benefits, right? So we painted a really nice picture. Now, how do we capitalize on all this information, right? So I'm going to kick it off to Glenn. and then we'll let Jason finish that off. But lots of really good stuff here, everyone. Like this is very impactful, and it's probably, just going to be completely honest here, probably is OnTap step one. There's probably going to be some follow-up OnTap series specifically around this particular subject matter. But now that we've painted the picture, how do we use it? How do we make it to our benefit, right? How do we capitalize on this stuff?
Sure, Josh. So I'm going to say there's good news here for marketers in that you are going to be returning back to the fundamentals that you got into marketing for in the first place. And you will need to pick up a little bit more of the technical side, but set your compass by what you know marketing to be. So if we're talking about speaking to a particular segment of user and they are looking at a particular kind of product on your site, and maybe they fill in an email form, use your marketing DNA to tell you, all right, I've got a particular email sequence in mind for them, and I have this kind of objective for them downstream. This is your opportunity to look and see how those pieces of information can be laid like breadcrumbs through your analytics. You should be able to find the individual form on that website and tell GA4, hey, I want to know that form because I've got a specific email sequence. And when those IDs can match up in the back end, you're going to be able to tell where everybody's going and how your program is actually touching and changing their buying decisions and their influences. So yeah, we can talk technicalities, but the truth is, this is a chance for marketers to just be better at marketing.
Couldn't have said better myself, 100%.
Marketers always need to be better at marketing, by the way. Like, we got to always do better.
True,
We got to push the
true.
boundaries.
Pull up our socks.
And we're good at adopting in the changing landscape, and that is happening. And there's a lot of changes, and we're going, 100 miles an hour here now, and that's going to be happening for a long time to come. At the end of the day, I think the biggest thing is get on it. Get on it now. Get on GA4. Get acclimated to it. Get in the weeds of it. Like, there are some complex things there, of course. There are, and that's always going to be an unfortunate reality. But there's resources out there, maybe not on Google's side because their documentation is lacking most of the time, but still, there's resources like us that are out there, and I can't say it enough. Just get on GA4, create the property. And this is the year to do it. So this is the big year for data, big year for marketers.
Yeah, definitely reiterate that sentiment. Don't wait. There is some learning curve here, so give yourself some ample time, especially if you work in a larger marketing team and there's a lot of people that need to kind of buy into the new approach. And if you have higher ups that expect certain type of reporting, that may take some time for you to build those things inside of GA4. So those are things that just don't wait till the last minute, like I do. So it's just something that I think everyone should take a look at, really kind of get on it, and it's it's free, right? So there's really no reason that you can't do the most basics of basics and just getting in there and kind of getting familiar with it. So first of all, thank you, Glenn. Thank you, Jason, for all that information. And again, I think that we can all agree that there's a lot of information that we can continuously unpack. We definitely want to hear from you. If you have additional questions, you want to reach out to Glenn, you want to reach out to Jason, that would be fantastic. We're here to help and we're here to support. So we got here just under 5 minutes or so to do some Q&A. I think there's some preliminary questions that came in. There was another one, a few of them that came in. Again, one's a little more technical, and then there's another one here that I think what we'll try to do is probably get an answer to that and put that on our blog. But as far as the first couple of Q&A questions, I think, Nicole, were you going to read those off, or am I supposed to do that?
Actually, I'll be doing that. Yes.
Katie's doing it. That's right. So Katie, by the way, is one of our marketing associates here at Arctic Leaf. Really cannot thank Nicole and Katie enough for putting this whole OnTap series together. There's a lot of planning that actually happens, multiple meetings, putting the decks together. So huge thank you to Katie and Nicole for all of your support and help on making this a successful event, and also making it into hopefully even more successful events as we continue to grow this series. So go ahead, Katie.
Thank you, Josh.
You're welcome.
We'll start with an easy one. Will our legacy data from Universal Analytics port over to GA4, or do we have to do this manually?
Who wants to take that? Glenn, you want to take that? Or you want...
Sure. Yeah.
Glenn looks like he wants it.
I know,
Glenn's like, I want that question.
He's like, I'll talk.
Burning him.
This give and take that Google has, here we go again. So I will say, if you only want to do one thing before you get off of Universal Analytics, it would be to go in, and there will be several basically those large menu areas within each of your menu have overviews. So go to each of those overviews and you can download that information as comma separated value files. So at least you have it. It will not go over to GA4. They are completely different databases. But now I come to the part where Google giveth. So what does Google giveth? They have made GA4 information available in database format, and they do that through Google Cloud. And it's basically free. You can set up Google Cloud, you can turn GA4 on so that your own data is pooling in there. What a lot of folks are doing is they're then taking those Universal Analytics CSV files and also dropping them into a Google Cloud database. And then, yeah, maybe with the help from your friendly neighborhood computer science guy, you can get that information so that they're stitched together and showing in one single report. But that is the Google way of doing it.
And that was primarily only for the paid version in the past, right, Glenn?
Correct. If you had the paid version, then you already had this database. For the majority of us, all you had was the interface.
Got it. Perfect. Great. Thanks, Glenn.
All right, next question. What suggestions do you have for comparing historical data from Universal to GA4?
I'll just say, but Glenn basically just answered it. That's basically it. Again, exporting it, putting it into the cloud service that comes free now in GA4. So, and then, looking into the data warehousing, again, this might be a new thing for some merchants, but thinking of it in that manner, getting prepared for doing it that way, because you might be living in there a little bit more than you live in the GA4 dashboard. But yeah, exporting that data as a CSV file, what have you, that's kind of, Glenn already went through the details of that.
Perfect.
Great. Well, and I think we have time for one more question. So I think I'm just going to throw this one out there. How can Arctic Leaf support us in this transition?
I'll probably take that. If you don't mind.
I hope so. I mean, Glenn can take it if he wants, but like,
I'm not going to, in any way. So we have a fantastic development team. We can handle the complicated implementation. We can handle event creations. We can do all that. We can ensure that the data is propagating correctly. We can do all that stuff. But I think the bigger thing that we can also support with is that we can help strategize. We can look at your business. We can look at your product. We can look and analyze it and work together to figure out ways like, hey, if GA4 has all these customizable features, let's figure out what we can do now, because it's a brand new thing. And I think that's kind of like the bigger conversation piece here. So anyway, please come reach out to us.
I think Jason, you hit the nail on the head there with the strategy side, right? Like, it's one thing to be able to make a nice looking e-commerce store or send a nice email campaign, but there is the why behind all of it, right? Why are we doing this? What are the events you want to be tracking? What's the plan to migrate and move over to GA4, and how does the learning curve not impact your business as much, right? Allow people to support you and give strategy and guide you along the way. That's why there are companies like Arctic Leaf, and also marketing what's new, like Glenn has been doing. So first of all, awesome OnTap series. First of all, everyone, cheers. If you have not been drinking, you should have been. And then just really unbelievable information. Like I said, all this is going to be unpacked and posted as a blog post on our blog, and definitely go check that out. We know we have a couple of questions that came in on the live chat. Thank you, Danielle and Jim. We will definitely get back to you on that, and that will be answered on the blog post. We also are going to be sending out a post discussion survey. We would love for everyone to kind of give some feedback, give ideas, tell us if you like this session. If you hated it, tell us don't say you hate it, just say you didn't love it. But definitely we're always welcoming feedback. We always want to improve. We want to make sure that these sessions are important. We very much value your time for hopping on and giving us your attention for this afternoon. And then once this is all completed, you are going to be entered into a draw to win a analytics review, which is Glenn has been offered to do so with marketing what's new. So an analytics review and an approach, and then Arctic Leaf will provide a light UX audit. So this is where Jason and our creative team will take a look at your e-commerce store and provide some guidance on best practices on things that could be improved to overall help conversion. And then last but not least, there likely will be a part 2 of this OnTap series, just because there is so much happening in this space. And Glenn's like, yes. There's just so much happening in this particular space, and data, like Jason said, it's the year of data. So it's something that we want to really be being proactive about and being a thought leader and really trying to give you the actionable items on what to do in an easy, digestible format. So definitely keep your eyes and ears open for the step 2. I thank you guys so much for all of your time and patience and support. This was a great session. I learned a whole lot more. Glenn, humongous thank you. Really, cannot even thank you enough. It's really cool to be able to work with a coach and mentor and someone that I've looked up to. And then Jason, being able to bring your experiences from your past and all together to support our ecosystem. Just a big thank you to you guys, and big thank you to everyone behind the scenes at Arctic Leaf. And finally, I will raise my glass and I will say salut, I will say l'chaim, and cheers. And thank you guys so much for joining us on this OnTap series. Have yourself an amazing rest of your day. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.